Hey, and welcome to a more concise explanation of moving the decimal, also known as multiplying or dividing by 10, 100, or 1000, which is what you'll normally be doing, but really this can be 10 to the power of anything. I did say this is going to be a concise version, so I thought I'd start off with some spoilers. So if you're multiplying, you want to move your decimal to the right hand side. That will make your number bigger. If you want to divide, you will move your decimal to the left-hand side. That will make your number smaller. If you're timesing or dividing by 10, you move once. If you're timesing or dividing by 100, you move twice. If you're timesing or dividing by 1000, you move 3 times. Basically, if you're timesing or dividing by 10 to the power of x, you move x times. And the reason being is 1 0, 2 zeros, 3 zeros, x zeros means you move x times. You want to move once for every 0. I advise a lot of students to make posters, so you might want to screenshot and make yourself just a really quick poster of this information. So how are we going to times by 10? This might be one of the easier ones that we're going to come across. Here, if we've got a whole number, what we can do is we can cheat a little bit and we can just say we're going to put a 0 on the end, not add a 0 on the end. I don't like that terminology. We can say we're going to put a 0 on the end. So we'd write 12 followed by a 0. Nice and easy. Here, we don't have an integer, we have 3.5 and the decimal place is here. Remember, I said what we're going to do is move it to the right and we're going to move it once. Okay, so we're going to go from here to there, put the decimal place in, and that leaves us with the answer of 35. Over here, we're going to do that with this number here, 0.67. We move this decimal place over to the right once, and that leaves us with the number 6.7. Here, if we move this decimal place over once, that leaves us with 0.04. So that's not too taxing. Let's have a look what happens when we divide the same numbers. Okay, so despite my writing getting a little bit smaller, we've got the same numbers and this time we're dividing by 10 instead of timesing by 10. So what I said was we're going to move to the left hand side, and because we're doing it by 10, it's going to go by 1 decimal place. Okay, so if we start with this number here, 12, you might say there is no decimal place. So how am I going to do that? Well, there's a decimal place right here that is with every single number. Every integer has a decimal at the end of the number here. We're going to move left 1 place. There we go. So our answer becomes 1.2. Here our decimal place is between 3 and 5. We're going to move to the left once and it's going to come at the front. So what we need to do is put a 0 at the front of it. So this would be 0.35. Here we'd move across 1 and we need a 0 at the front. And we'd do the same here as well. I'll pop them answers in. So what we can see with these numbers that were started off as decimals, less than the value of 1. It was 0.67. We've just grown we haven't grown. We have an extra 0 in between the decimal and our first numbers, significant figures. Same here, you had 2 zeros, decimal and 2 zeros. Now you have a decimal and 3 zeros before 4. Okay, so here I've set the same up again. Same numbers that we're starting with, timesing by 100, and then same numbers dividing by 100. If you wish so, you can pause it now and have a go yourself. If you want to follow along, I'd suggest the first thing we consider is which way are we moving the decimal and how many times. So when we're multiplying by 100, we should be moving to the right. How many times? Well, there's 2 zeros twice. When we're dividing by 100, we should be moving to the left. How many times? Twice. And a lot of people get fixated on, are we moving left or are we moving right? But what I think is really important is, if you're timesing is grouping, getting multiple, doing addition repetitively. You expect your number to get bigger. So whatever I do, if you're unsure, just go ahead and have a go, move it left or right. If your number's bigger, that's correct. If your number's smaller, then you've done the wrong thing. Same as with division. Division is taking a number and splitting it up, breaking it apart into smaller groups. So your number is going to be smaller. So you can move left or right. And if you end up with a bigger number, then you'll instinctively realise, I've done this wrong. So here, let's go ahead and have a look at how the decimal is going to move. So I just realised I need to leave a little bit more space. But here's my decimal point. I'm going to move it to the right twice. Once, twice. Well, now I'm left with this gap. And with this gap, I can fill it with zeros. Okay? Here we've got 3.5. I move it once to the right, twice to the right. I've got one gap. Move it, this decimal here, twice to the right. And it means that I've got 67 as a whole number. Here, I'm going to move 2 places. I have 2 zeros here. So I'm going to move the decimal to the right one twice. It's going to bring that right there for me. So we can see our answers are 12,000. Sorry, 1,200, 1,200, 350, 67, and 0.4. Let's look at moving these decimal places. So this decimal is here. Move it to the left once and twice. So that leaves us with 0.12. Move this once, twice. The decimal's here. Now, we know we're going to put a 0 in front of it. We also need a 0 here as well. Okay? Same here. Once, twice. The decimal place is here. We need a 0 here. That's very, very important. Here we are going to do the same thing once and twice. Okay? I'll show you what these numbers read as. So it's 0.035, 0.0067, 0.0000. So there's going to be 4 zeros. 0.1234, 4. And as you can see, these are all one more 0 than if we had divided by 10. So I think you're all getting the hang of this quite well by now. So let's have a look at timesing by 1,000 with some different examples. And you can have a go at moving the decimal. Remember, we're going to move to the right. We're going to move to the right hand side. I'm going to look at how many zeros. 1, 2, 3 times 3. Okay, and how I sometimes think about this is the decimal wants to move to the end of the number and push all the numbers along and make it as big as possible. And here you're going to want to move to the left. How many times? 3 times, okay? And here you might want to think about it as the decimal is trying to get to the front of the number and push everything this way so it's as small as possible. Okay, have a go. I'll pause this video now. So now here you can see I've made my little swoops or loops. The decimal place has moved. I've had to fill in some extra zeros here. Had to add some zeros at the front here to make this number smaller, and I'll reveal the answers now. So there you go for multiplication. I know we're getting into some quite big numbers here, but I wouldn't be afraid. Just take it easy step by step. We're doing the same process. Now you've got the same thing here. Just take it step by step. So we've done the same process. We moved it along. We've filled in the zeros. Now just calmly, you can write your answer 0.123. 125. 125. Okay, so we don't have to do anything special. Just take it easy for these bigger numbers when we're timesing or dividing by 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 or a million. Okay, there's your answers for dividing by 1,000. I'm not going to go on and do the 100,000s and millions. It's the exact same principle. Off you go, have a go, and try some examples yourself.